of where a president is voted from, he should bring development to all corners of a country, including Kenya. Now, even as we wait for Raphael Tuju to give the much-awaited way forward in terms of Jubilee Party, Javas Bigambo is already in studio, governance expert. What do you expect from Raphael Tuju as a Secretary General right now in terms of the diswrangles inside Jubilee Party?
Going by the remarks that Honorable Tuju made a couple of days ago, which seemed to be aligned or picked from the same script as the former Vice Chair, Murathes, and now following Murathes' resignation, I would want to pleasantly imagine that maybe the President has read the Riot Act and his sentiments are likely to be measured. I would possibly hope that and expect that his remarks this forenoon are going to be tempered with caution, the caution of sobriety to the extent that his remarks should not stir up the party further. Being the Secretary General of the party, he is the cog of it, and therefore his remarks should be such that they accommodate every member at whatever level. And also, he should give direction that now, upon the resignation of the Vice Chair, interim Vice Chair, and looking at the state of the party, the sentiments of the President, picking up on them, the fears and concerns and worries of those party members aligned to the Deputy President William Ruto, all these things should inform Honorable Tuju's remarks this forenoon. And therefore, I expect his remarks to be tempered with caution.
With caution. Despite what Tuju has to say, do you honestly think that it might actually slow down the talk of 2022 politics? We well know Jubilee Party has been rife with it. One side, Ruto's camp, actually pushing the agenda of 2022 succession and making sure that Ruto is in a better position to take over the instruments of power come that time in terms of being the Jubilee Party candidate, marking on the promise that was allegedly made 10 years for President Uhuru Kenyatta and 10 years for William Ruto. Will it stop it?
Not quite. I do not expect that Tuju's remarks will fetter conversations and discussions about 2022 and the succession politics, because he doesn't have the wherewithal to stop conversations across the country or even within his party. How many times have we heard the President himself pronounce himself, and even the Deputy President, that people should not focus on 2022, they should focus on delivering on the Big Four agenda and the party's manifesto, having just concluded elections more than 1.5 weeks, years ago.
Yes. So
his remarks will have nothing to do with fettering conversations within the party about 2022 elections. His remarks should be tethered on the issues of having a cogent party, sustaining the convivial working relations within the party, looking at party membership, party leadership, etc., and appreciating the significance of this other faction that seems to be now a bit cold. And if you look at this faction specifically, I'm referring to members aligned to Deputy President William Ruto, who are feeling chagrined by the remarks of certain individuals, Murathe included, of those individuals aligned to President Kenyatta. It took President Kenyatta collapsing his party and William Ruto collapsing his party to now form the Jubilee Party. And therefore, due regard must be afforded to the leadership of President Kenyatta as a person, as a politician, as well as Honorable William Ruto, as a politician in his own right, as a Deputy President, and as individuals who made Jubilee Party possible and come into existence.
Okay, it's a good thing you brought up the emergence or the merging of 11 political parties to actually form the Jubilee Party. Critics might argue that it might be a little bit too much for Jubilee Party because we have various factions within the party trying to make sure that their agenda is set, not just in terms of what the president is saying, Big Four agenda, the development track record. They're trying to make sure that their political survival, not just within the party, come 2022 stands out.
You see, succession politics is a very slippery floor. And that is why every person is trying to take a position that will not make them slip into political oblivion. And when you consider the slippery nace and slippery nature of succession politics, aware too, with the benefit of hindsight of our national history, our political history for that matter, you'd realize that there are some minefields that William Ruto wants to be very careful to avoid. And then President Kenyatta is also aware that it is possible for the voices, the conscious voices of development-oriented politics being submerged by the high-voltage conversations about succession politics.
Exactly.
And remember that for William Ruto, the succession is far more important because it's about the future where he wants to live, much as he must also come alive to the fact that that future is only possible and can only come into reality if at all he aids his boss, President Kenyatta, to deliver on the development plan that he has, the Big Four agenda, etc.
Yes.
Because it's only upon the back of that horse, the Big Four agenda and its successes, that William Ruto can sprint into that future of political succession post-Kenyatta presidency. That's what he needs to look at.
Yeah.
But now, we also need to be real. Kenyans are in this. It's not just about the party leaders and politicians, etc. In fact, these conversations happen in every village and hamlet. Go to counties across the country, the 47 of them. The moment an election is concluded, people are thinking about the succession of that office by other individuals. And that is where we miss the boat by the river. Because it seems from the leadership level to the common level, people are far less concerned about the issues, the deliverables and the promises that were made in the last election. Ask nearly every leader here, even governors and senators, what are the absolute promises that they made during the elections, and what is it that they are doing at this moment to deliver on them consciously, deliberately, objectively? Many of them have moved, the ground has shifted a bit. Yes, generally they are talking about delivering on that, but majority are not very keen on that, except, say, governors who are serving their second terms, who now are very keen on their legacies.
Yes.
But others are thinking about how can they make plans for the next election, and how is it that they can make it a success point for them.
Let's look at the bigger picture. Party ideologies. I was looking up at the Jubilee Party, and the ideology is about Kenyan nationalism. And we had various leaders from Jubilee Party actually say that we have brought in various parties representing various communities to actually merge and form Jubilee Party to represent each and every Kenyan. But just as you've mentioned, the ground has shifted. We're not getting that unifying message from this party. And let's also include various parties in Africa. We talk about the oldest party, the African National Congress, 107 years old. It started as a liberation movement and metamorphosized later to a political party that has its own challenges. But in terms of dispute resolution, in terms of internal party wrangles, the NEC comes out very strongly. And we saw in the case of Jacob Zuma. Is this what might be missing in some other political parties, bearing in mind Jubilee as well?
I'll start with Jubilee.
Okay.
You used the term nationalism? Well, if you say nationalism and align it to, say, Jubilee Party,
yes,
as you would perhaps of any other political party in Kenya, that was just a chat at the picnic. Because when you come back to reality and you look at our leaders and every sentiment they make, do you see even any grain of nationalism? I shudder to even say that they have the courage to use the term nationalism and associate it with their own parties. When you see leaders, for example, in Kenya here, castigating the president for taking conversations of development in other regions, they poking his eyes with certain fingers and saying, why is it that you're forgetting your own backyard? Nationalism? What hogwash, really? Parties in Kenya and most of Africa have not brought themselves to the reality of ideology, the significance of ideology, and actually the objectivity of it. Now, certain parties, we can say that they have and continue to grapple and try to hold on to the essence of ideology and see where is it that that horse can take them. When you point out, for example, the ANC in South Africa, you can say that impressively, they have made good effort. During the time of Mandela, during the leadership of Mbeki, you could see the aspect of ideology. When President Zuma took over, that issue of ideology started becoming smoke, and it went into thin air. Today, I want to pleasantly hope that, say, for example, President Ramaphosa, being at the leadership of the party, and having been there during the nascent days of, or during the days of Mandela, and having been a firebrand leader at the time, maybe he could see how to sustain the issue of ideology. In Kenya here, we have got, for example, the Kenya African National Union, and it's in former times. Right now, it's only a shell of its former self. Look at a young party, nearly 5 years old or less, Jubilee Party. What is it that even, and we know when you talk about ideology, it's not what leaders speak about on the political agora. It's about what even their members believe in. When you go to the villages, when you go to the counties, and somebody says that I am affiliated to Jubilee or I'm affiliated to ODM, whatever party it is, and you ask this person, whether it's a young person, whether it's an old lady or an old man, tell me what is the ideology of this party you claim to belong to. Will they tell you? In Kenya, you will find every person having their own interpretation of what their parties stand for. Generally, their leaders, the leaders of these political parties, will give you a fair image, not a clear image, of what kind of ideology, not the real ideology, what kind of ideology perspectives that party believes in. But in the end, all of them will dash into the shade of issues of development and hide there. So parties in Kenya and most of Africa, whether you're looking at DRC, whether you're looking at Ghana, whether you're looking at Cameroon, even if you go down to South Africa, you realize that most of the time, parties are only instruments of state capture. Individuals use these parties because they want to access and exploit public resources that are under government. When a party gains the reins of authority, then for them it's a question of exploiting whatever power, resources for their own gain, especially of the leaders. Now look at the founding of political parties, especially in Kenya. Political parties, how are they founded? They are founded on the strength, the imagination, and the interests of a particular individual who becomes the vision bearer of that party. Upon the exit of that individual, those parties die. Look at PNU, for example. Upon the exit of Mwai Kibaki, the party died. Look at, for example, the Democratic Party, the DP, Democratic Party. Upon the exit of Mwai Kibaki, it died.
That's very true. That's very true. And as you highlight these cases, I think in terms of changing the mindset, not just in Kenya, but Africa, what really needs to be done to make sure that, yes, this politicians might be using these parties as vessels to actually satisfy their interest as the party leader. But how would you change the mindset among Kenyans to actually see the bigger picture that a political party can actually be a movement? Talk about what happens in the United States. We see the far left, the far right, who actually believe in ideologies and stick by them.
Across the world, in progressive democracies, parties stand for certain ideologies, and regardless of somebody who is at the helm of government of the day, upon their exit, those parties remain. And if those leaders are popular, they will help the party move forward. If they were unpopular, they'll take the back seat. When you look, for example, look at the United Kingdom.
As we conclude, very first, yes.
The United Kingdom. Look at the issues of Brexit, for example, and how each party has come in, not as an ideological issue, but how these parties affect the greater national good. Look at the US. The Democratic Party has been there, the Republican Party is there.
All right.
And if you come in as an individual, as a leader, and then you are far removed from the realities of a party's ideology, then you'll see the entire leadership of the party distancing itself from you. Let me just close by saying this. Here in Kenya, we have got, for example, yes, the Political Parties Act, all the pieces of legislation, etc. Matters party financing. How come, for example, 1.5 years after election...
Allow me to cut you short. We cannot miss this. Let's just cross over to Jubilee.